What you see here is a house that burned to the ground. This is the tree in front of it, at its front yard, roughly 6 feet apart from the burnt down house, and the tree is still green, or the landscaping is still green, the lawn is still green. Why did the house burn? This showed up in the comments of my latest video about the Spokane wildfire that burned down large neighborhoods in Spokane, and it's still burning more than anything else. How is this possible? Is this arson? Is this directed energy? Did they skip houses? No, it's physics. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So here's the short answer. That house was not set on fire by the wildfire. It was set on fire by something the wildfire threw at it upon up to an hour before the flames even arrived, was Chizzy hitting the fizzy for that home. And in some cases from over a mile away. And that's the part that should actually worry you, because it means that the fire doesn't have to reach your neighborhood to destroy it. So if you see the fire from further away and you're like, yeah, we still have time, you might not. So it wasn't the flame front. When a wildfire burns in high wind, it lofts burning material up into the air. We're talking about bark, pine cone fragments, twigs, chunk of siding once structures start burning. So those are embers or firebrands. Very, very dangerous. They travel miles ahead of the fire front, starting fire spots wherever they land. That's why we see wildfires jumping over rivers or even lakes. I just got confirmation that in Washington on Lake Chelan, the wildfire has jumped over the lake to the other side. So of course nothing jumped physically. The embers are landing on the other side. They travel miles ahead of the fire front. They start spot fires wherever they land. And here's the number that will change everything, that is totally reframing everything. Up to 90% of homes that are destroyed in wildfires are ignited by embers. 90%, not by the flame front. And that's the dangerous thing. So Cal Fire, they have their own figure. They're saying 60 to 90%, and their state fire marshal's office calls embers the most common cause of home ignition. That's why, if you can afford it, if you live in wildfire prone areas and you can put sprinkler systems on your roofs to catch the embers. It doesn't help to sprinkle your lawn away from the home. You have to actually water your home from the roof down. So where do embers get into the house if they get to the house? It's not you can say, oh, I have a metal roof, no problem. No, unfortunately not. There is a lot of spots where this fire can burn your house from within. So gutters, if you have gutters full of dry leaves, dry pine needles, or you have bark mulch that is pushed up against a foundation, watch your landscaping. The gap between deck boards, for example, under the eaves. And the big one, guys, is one that you would not suspect. Attic and crawl space vents. Attic and crawl space vents. And that is really evil because a house has to breathe. Every vent, though, is an opening. Wind, strong winds, imagining that, they drive embers through the mesh. They land on insulation or on stored boxes in an attic that nobody has opened in years. They land there and the house ignites from the inside out. We have seen stuff like this in the California wildfire last year. That's why you see pictures of a house that is fully destroyed with intact landscaping around it. The fire started in the attic. The yard was never involved. Now you might say, wow, but if the house burns, it is throwing stuff on the yard and should light that on fire. I'm getting to this, right? Because the house is different than the tree. Second reason, we can say. And this one is counterintuitive. The second reason why the house burns and the tree stands. A living conifer in summer holds somewhere around 80 to 130% moisture content by dry weight. So there's more water in that tree actually than there is wood. But if we're dealing with kiln-dried framing lumber, that is about 10 to 12% moisture. Think about this. That's the standard. It has to be that dry or the house warps. So there's no way around this. So the tree actually is a wet object with a thick insulating bark. The house, unfortunately I have to say that, is a stack of deliberately dried wood. It's wrapped in vinyl, filled with foam insulation, synthetic carpet, furniture, and a garage with paint thinner, boxes, and a vehicle in it. So per square foot or per square meter, however you want to calculate it, the house carries several times the available energy of the vegetation that is around it. So we think of the forest as the fuel and the house as the victim. But in a neighborhood fire, actually that's backwards. The house is the best fuel on the block. But coming up, the reason the fire is moving 45 miles per hour is actually less dangerous to a tree than a slow one. The moment a wildfire stops being a wildfire and it turns into something firefighters treat completely differently. And at the end, the 5-foot rule, the single change that does more to save a house than anything else on the list, and it costs almost nothing. So stay with me. Here's the one nobody expects. Wind-driven fire moves fast, very, very fast, really fast. The Spokane fire was pushed by gusts of up to 35 to 45 miles per hour winds. So fast fire is terrifying if it comes towards you. But at any single point on the ground, it's over quickly. The flame front passes in seconds of time, in seconds to a minute. And that is what we call the residence time, how long the fire stays. So to ignite a live tree crown, you need sustained heat long enough to boil off all that moisture first that's in the tree. Like a minute doesn't do it. What a minute does is scorch the trunk and brown the lower needles, which is exactly what you see in the videos and in the photos. That tree wasn't spared, it was hit and it survived because there wasn't enough time to dry it actually out. But that same minute is more than enough time to deposit an ember in your gutter, underneath your deck, at debris next to your house, into your vents, into your attic, into your crawl space. And as I mentioned, the embers do not work on the fire's schedule. They can smolder in place for hours, where you think that looks harmless. They get into your house, they smolder, you don't even notice it. It's like a lit cigarette. It smolders for quite a while until it ignites the fire. So before flaming up, they smolder before they're flaming up, and that before they're actually reigniting areas that crews had already extinguished or saved. That's why some neighborhoods look survivable after the fire front passes, and then they start losing houses one at a time over the next several hours. The fire already left, but the embers, they stayed. And now the fourth mechanism, and this is the one that produces the images that look impossible, the ones that you were commenting about. Once the house is fully involved, it burns hotter and far longer than the grass fire ever did, right? A structure fire has a residence time that is measured in hours, not in seconds or minutes like the wildfire. So that burning house radiates enough heat to ignite the next one next to it. Then that one lights up the next one. Radiant heat, direct flame contact, and its own ember shower onto the neighbor's roof. And that is called a structure to structure spread. And this one is actually a specific research focus because this is exactly what drives this large scale community loss in these fires that we have seen in Hawaii, in California. Now we see it all over the West Coast. In Spokane, by the time the fire is destroying the Indian Trail neighborhood, it is functionally no longer a wildfire. It's an urban conflagration that happened to be started by a wildfire. That explains the tree, guys. The tree standing between two burned houses absorbed enormous radiant heat. But radiant heat alone without flame contact or enough time doesn't get a wet crown to ignition. It kills the needles, it leaves the trunk. And the same goes for lower landscaping, boxwood hedges. That is watered on a regular basis. It's moist. So you get a corridor with foundations, with living trees standing next to the fully destroyed homes that are put to ashes. And it looks like the fire was aimed only at the house, but it wasn't aimed, guys. It wasn't. The fire followed the fuel. It was looking for the fuel, and the fuel were the houses, the structures, unfortunately. And two smaller factors that finish that picture, but they're equally as important. Irrigation. A suburban yard is watered. Lawns, you have ornaments, trees with high moisture, broad leaves. The wildland fields a mile away. They're not watered. And Washington, Eastern Washington, is in its fourth consecutive statewide drought. So same species, but different fire behavior purely because of how they're watered. And of course, you do forest management around your house. You do landscaping. You remove debris, hopefully, right? But age. A house built before roughly the mid-2000s in most of the West was built with no ember resistance requirements at all. So unrated vents, wood shake or old asphalt roofs, vinyl gutters that melt and drop their burning contents against the siding, combustible decks, wood fencing, for example. Newer homes in the same fire often survive, or they survive at least better, and this isn't luck. But the 5-foot rule, guys, which brings me to what you can actually do. And I want to show you a test that makes this undeniable. IBHS built a facility large enough to hold a full-size house and shower it with embers for testing reasons. So they built one test structure with two different sides. One with cement siding, metal gutters, double pane windows, and a 5-foot gravel perimeter. The other was with cedar siding, vinyl gutters, single pane windows, and bark mulch. Then the same ember storm both sides. Within 2 minutes, there was a flame. Within 5 minutes, the mulch was burning. Then the siding, then the eaves, then the attic vent, and that side of the structure was gone. It was gone. The hardened side didn't burn, actually. Same fire, same embers, different first 5 feet. So zone 0, the 5 feet immediately around your house. No bark mulch, gravel or bare soil instead. Nothing stored under the deck. Clean the gutters. Move the firewood stack. Even a small amount of water kills an ember, which is why that zone matters more than anything happening 100 feet away. And then the vents. Finer mesh screens definitely are the cheapest, meaningful upgrade that any house can get. Clearing the brush at the property line. Feels very productive, but it's not where the fire actually came from. So back to this image here. The tree survived because it was wet, thick barked, and the fire only touched it for a minute. The house burned because something invisible landed somewhere in a gutter or vent 40 minutes roughly before the flames arrived. The fire never had to reach this street, actually. It just had to get close enough to throw something at it. I hope you found that interesting, guys. If you want to know more about the wildfire in Spokane, check out this video. If you want to know other crazy things that happened, guys, and they do, you have to check out this video here. It's in the end screen. I see you in a minute. Bye-bye.